guys? This is Casey as Raw again, and today we're going to talk about wrestling. Today we'll be talking about from Dark Side of the Ring, Season 4, Episode 8, Bam Bam Bigelow. If you hear some background noise, I apologize. So, they pretty much talked about how he would, his background when he was younger. Like, he was already a big guy. Like, when he was 17, he went to Diamond Dallas Page's bar. And because he looked already big, you figure he was adult. So, they let him drink and everything. So, and DDP already knew who he was. So, they talked about Paul Heyman was like the guy who was promoting Bam Bam Bigelow in his first few matches. Like, they were trying to promote about Studio 54, and they were trying to get some well-known people to go to Studio 54. Like, Paul Heyman invented the Man of the Year award, and they were going to give it to Hogan. Hogan said no. So that eventually went to Ric Flair, and Ric Flair jumped to get this award that meant nothing. Like, I can make this award and make myself the Man of the Year. Man of the Century. What about that? But, Man of all time. So, I could do that too, so. But, he pretty much got the eye of Vince McMahon, how big he was, and he went to the WWF pretty freaking fast. They were saying he was pretty much the number 2 baby face at the time. You figured the way how he had his head tattooed and wearing flames. I'm like, you figure he was a heel. Like, I don't know how he was not nothing but a heel. But I guess when he had his first run, he was a face. Then they were saying in the episode that Bam Bam Bigelow was having a bad attitude. So, he had a match against Andre the Giant. And Andre did not like his attitude, so he beat the shit out of Bam Bam to the point where, what Ted DiBiase was told before, saying that he came back to the back and saying that he quit. Saying he left for 5 years, went to the NWA for a little bit, and I guess eventually it was WCW. And then in early 90s, he came back. I think it was like 92. They had his son, 2 of his sons, and there's a daughter. Yeah, he had a daughter, and they talk about his daughter. Only remembered last time seeing him when he got arrested for, I guess, DUI, and that was the last time she saw them. And his son was looking through all the photos, and one of his sons was wearing his ring gear, like his jacket, and he's like, it would have pyro come out from the collar. So, but then they eventually came back to WWF, had a run. His son took, offense. He took offended. He was offended. That's what I meant. That people consider WrestleMania 11 as the worst of all time. He assumed we're talking about just the main event. No, the main event was okay. It wasn't great. The whole show sucked. The only thing they should have done, that should have been the match before the WWF title that had HBK versus Diesel. That should have been the main event. So that's probably why a lot of people was soured on WrestleMania 11, but the show sucked though. It was, like Soul Monster says, and a lot of people says WrestleMania 9 is the worst. No, I actually enjoy WrestleMania 9. There's a hell of a lot, there's several other WrestleManias, and more modern WrestleManias are horrible. The biggest one comes to mind is WrestleMania 27. Soul Monster put it perfectly that whole thing was a waste. So they used that just to promote for the next year. And I was like, and it sucked. Even if Cena beat The Miz, I think the show would have been horrible as well. But that show sucked. Minus, was it Taker versus? I think that was Taker versus Triple H. I guess that was number one. Well, actually, no, that wouldn't be the first one between Triple H and Taker. That was at WrestleMania X7. This would be number 2 in the more modern ones. So, to me, I thought that's hands down, like, up there as one of the worst. That main event to me was way worse than Bam Bam versus LT. I'm like, even though, yes, LT is an athlete, but he didn't know wrestling. So they put him with Bam Bam so Bam Bam can carry him. But like I said, they got one of his sons was offended about people calling WrestleMania 11 as the worst of all time. But strangely enough, I hear WrestleMania 11 was actually very profitable for the WWF at that time. I think they said they needed that to be profitable for that year. So, there's a positive. But they had a lot of stories that seem not legit. And I feel like, for me, Dark Side of the Ring really needs to. Yeah, it's fun. It's good to hear about some of these stories from wrestlers, but the problem is, a lot of them likes to embellish the stories or completely fabricate a story. Like, Hogan is the biggest one of all who would do that. And so, I wouldn't take anything in that show with I would take with huge chunks of salt. Instead of grains of salt, I'd say huge chunks of salt. Because I think a lot of the stories were not true. Especially a lot of his, his bounty hunter story. And where he saved kids from burning house. It was pretty much proven it was embellished a little bit. And there's different versions, different stories. So, and I kind of feel like Vice kind of whitewashed Bam Bam a little bit. Not as bad as the whitewashed The Ultimate Warrior. But then they talked about his run of ECW and had Taz, Shane Douglas was on the show. Taz talks about the match between him and Bam Bam, especially about where they go through the ring, and they had to make sure Taz was not going to hit his head like on side of the trapdoor. So that's like pulling back the curtains even further. But and then after they talked a little bit about his second run with WCW, and it was just sad. He was dealing with drugs or pills and alcohol. So I mean, and then he had I guess one of his sons tried to visit him and couldn't find him until his son went back home and got what Soul Monster said that he pretty much ripped into him, and 3 weeks later he passed. And he is Bret Hart said that he is one of the biggest or the biggest or the best big man of all time. So I kind of agree. The guy was very athletic. I mean, the guy can do cartwheels when the guy's like, 450? I can't do that, and I'm under 3. So, it's a good episode. I would actually listen to the Soul Monsters review on this, because he has way more stories about a lot of this that Vice didn't tell, and Soul Monster did a lot of his own research too. So I feel like I wish Vice would take some of these people's research, like Soul Monster, Don Tony, Kevin Castle, those guys, because they're well known in the history. It's kind of like how I know a lot about retro video games and the history behind it. That's what the Soul Monster is about wrestling. I mean, I know some wrestling knowledge, but nothing compared to him. So it was good. It's not one of the best ones. I give it about 7.5 out of 10. So it was definitely good to just to watch, because like I tell you, when you're watching Vice, especially nowadays, you watch Vice, they take some liberties. So I would do is watch this, just be entertained, but don't take these stories as gospel, because these wrestlers like to embellish the stories a little bit. So, I mean, it's like Soul Monster says, during the Tales of the Territory, they loved about people popping eyeballs out someone's head. It's like every episode, an eye came out of someone's head. So take a grain of salt when you watch these. I mean, one of the reasons I say you have to really watch out is because the episode of Plane Ride from Hell from last year, there was a lot of wrong information. They were saying, oh, Vince and Linda was on the freaking airplane. I guarantee you the wrestlers would not do that if Vince and Linda was on the plane. And like, JR, yeah, they'll probably send JR, say, hey, tell them to calm the hell down. And I know Vince will do some crazy shit every once in a while, but he wouldn't allow it to go that wild. So I learned, because of that episode, not to take their word as gospel. So, but that's pretty much it. I gotta take care of my dog, so I'll talk to you guys later. See ya. Bye.